Join me in this video series as I guide you through the features of the motorized RR20 system. We're going to cover everything from the components to assembling and attaching it to the dashboard to programming the shades. But before we dive right in, I want to begin by reviewing a couple of the key features. The handrail system fits on a 2.5-inch projection board. This makes it perfect for those clients who are in need of a shade that has a narrow mounting depth. And with the name RR20, it's easy to remember that the system can support shades with a maximum weight of 20 pounds and accommodate sizes up to 96 inches wide and 108 inches in height. The RR20 motorized shade features the lithium-ion battery-powered motors, making the shade perfect for residential or small commercial projects. Now, the Rolleis-Acmeta lithium battery motors require no electrical wiring, and that means that there is no need for an electrician. Now, the system also offers user-friendly handheld or wall-mounted remotes, as well as the ability to integrate with home automation. In addition, should your customer decide to switch from a manual shade to a motorized shade after installation, the shades can be easily retrofitted on site. Having the right materials will ensure a smooth and efficient assembly process. You will need a dustboard with a 2.5-inch projection, 2 of the Rolleis-Acmeta Skyline LX brackets, a 1.5-inch aluminum tube, 1.5-inch heavy-duty pin end, the 1.5-inch tube clips. And to make sure that my shade is compliant, I will be using ring locks, and I will have level locks. And on the back of my shade, you will see that I have the forever rings. Now, I will also make sure that I have a couple of the orbs on hand, and these will help me adjust my shade. I will need shade cord along with a lighter and 4 screws to attach my brackets to my dustboard. I also need a drill with the drill bit, and because I'm using hex head, I'll have a hex head bit. Now, I prefer to use the hex head screws because that is what my installer uses, and it makes it really easy should he have to make adjustments on site. But of course, you can use the type of screws that fit your needs along with your installer's needs. Now, we will need the Rolleis-Acmeta 2.0 lithium-ion battery-powered motor, the drive and crown kit, a remote control, a pair of scissors, and a power supply to charge your motor. And as I mentioned, having everything at your fingertips will really make the assembly process a breeze. Before you even begin to assemble your shade, you will want to make sure that your motor is completely charged. Now, I'm going to show you 2 different cable options that you have to charge your motor. So your first option is using the Rolleis-Acmeta USB charging cable. So you're going to locate the motor charging port on your shade, and you're going to plug in the cable into the port, and then you're going to take the USB and plug it into the Rolleis-Acmeta wall charging plug. Then you're going to, of course, plug it in to the wall and let it charge for at least 6 hours. Now, the other option you have is using the Rolleis-Acmeta magnetic charging cable. Now, this charging cable has this little magnetic end that you will plug into the port on your motor. Pop that right in there, sideways. And then you would take the other end and plug it into the wall plug, just like that. And then the magnetic end attaches to the. Now that your motor is fully charged and you have your completed shade and all your supplies and components, you are ready to move on to the assembly stage. Now, we're going to begin by taking your dashboard with your attached Roman shade and installing the brackets. Now, let me stop for 1 second and say that I'm not going to walk you through the steps on how to attach your shade to the board, because there are so many methods out there, and I am sure that you have your preferred method of securing your shade to your board. Okay, so let's go ahead and attach our brackets to the dashboard. I've already attached one on this side, and I'm going to finish up on the opposite side. Now, I've already pre-drilled my holes. Make sure that my drill is going in the right direction. Okay. I'd like to make sure that my brackets come in about 1/8 of an inch on each side. I like to place them in 1/8 of an inch on each side, just in case we need a little bit of wiggle room at the time of install. And also, if I'm going to attach my fabric side tabs, I don't want my brackets impeding with them and pushing them out, okay? Right, now I can take my shade and move it out of my way, and then I will take my tube and I will cut this tube down 1 1/4 inches smaller than the finished width of my dashboard. That always gives me a nice secure fit. Next, I'm going to take my motor and I'm going to attach my crown and drive. Now, first, I want to make mention that a lot of times I have folks reaching out to say, how in the world can I get this onto the motor? Well, let me show you. Right on the top, you'll see this little piece that looks like a puzzle piece. And all you have to do is turn it sideways, and if you separate it by lifting up, it will come right apart. Now, you can easily wrap it around the motor, move it down to the end, and then just give it a good pinch, and you'll see that it will connect. Right? Let's go ahead and turn it, motor to this end, and just place this right on the end and attach your clip. There you go. Hear that snap. All right. Now your motor can be placed inside of your tube. We'll take the tube and we will look for the little channel inside of the tube, and we'll align the channel with the groove right here on the end. Slide it right in. Also find the notch and slide it over the channel. We're going to push, and we'll turn it around, and we'll do the same. Look for the channel and the pin in, and align it with the metal groove on the inside of the tube. We'll give it a nice little push. Okay, and we'll grab our shade and bring it back. And I like to start with the pin in and insert it into the end of the bracket. and we'll place this in our brackets. Now that your system is on your dustboard, it is time to string your shade. But before we get started, it's important to note that whether you have a manual operated or motorized shade, the steps that you will be taking will remain the same. To ensure that the shade is compliant with child safety standards, I have sewn the forever rings on the back of the shade 8 inches apart, and we'll be stringing it using ring locks. Let's begin by marking the tube for the placement of your C-clips. Now to do this, I find that it's handy if I take my system and align it side to side, and just where I can see the top of the first row of rings. And I will take my ruler, and I'm going to align my ruler like at the center of my ring. And I'm going to make a mark on my tube 2 inches in, because we want to offset our clips 2 inches in from our row of rings. And I'll come to the other side, and I will do the same. Okay, I can see the center of my ring at 2-inch mark, and I'll make a pencil mark right there. Now, this shade only has 2 rows of rings, but if you had additional rows of rings, then you would do the same. You will offset them either to the right of that row or to the left of that row 2 inches. Next, you're going to cut your shade cord. I cut the finished length of my shade plus 10 inches. Then we will insert it into the hole on the top of the clip. Now, this is my personal preference to go through both of the holes. Some may only go through one. I want to make sure that my cord are secure, and I will do anything I can to avoid any callback. So I've inserted into one of the holes and down the other. Then now I'm going to tie a knot large enough to keep it from coming through those holes. So I'll give it a little pull. So that's nice and secure. And I'll do the same to the other. Now, top and down the edge, on the other side, I should say. And again, just do some little knots. Securing the cord so it does not pull through the holes. Next step I'm going to take is I'm going to go to the end of the cord, and with the lighter, I want to seal the end. So carefully, I will just touch it and real quick pull on the end. Be careful not to singe your fingers. We do this so that the cord will slide through the hole in the ring lock. Let's now attach the C-clips to our tube. Now, when placing your C-clip on the tube, you want to make sure that the cord is coming out of the C-clip in the direction of the row of rings. Okay? Now you're just going to take the C-clip, and I always find one of the grooves on the tube and align the edge of the C-clip along that groove like this. And here's my 2-inch mark, and I just snap it down. Okay, now we'll do the same on the other side, making sure that my cord is coming out on the left-hand side, and I will find that same groove along that 2-inch mark, slide this down and snap it into place. Then take my cord and run it under the tube. And doing the same on the opposite side. I've turned the shade so that you have a better view of how I string the shade. Now for every ring, you will have a ring lock. I've placed them here in the row. And for the bottom of the shade, you will need an additional ring lock, a level lock, and then, like I said, I will be using the orbs just to help me balance and align my shade. So we'll take the ring lock and place it on top of the ring, and then take our cord and slide it through the little hole in the ring lock. Same. This is a pretty quick process, and it really does go smoother when you have singed the end of that cord. Now this is the last ring in this row, and I will now pull my cord all the way through, and I will take my level lock and the level lock, you can see, has a little cutout. I'm going to take that cutout and place it in the little groove of the ring lock. Take my cord and run it through the hole. Making sure that it goes through the hole of the level lock. Okay, so now it's loose on the bottom, but this is where the orb comes in. I'm going to take and insert my orb into the bottom. And I'm going to slide it right up, maybe about 1/4 of an inch from the last ring lock. Now I will be using the orb to help me make the final adjustments on the shade. Once the final adjustments are made, then I will secure that row of rings by locking in the level lock and removing the orb. Now I will finish stringing the shade. Attaching, placing the level lock into the ring lock, sometimes it does pop out, cord through, and attaching the orb. Now that I have strung my shade, I will place it onto the valet to make my final adjustments and lock in the level locks. Placing your shade on a valet or maybe even L brackets that are extended from the ceiling will allow you to, number one, make sure that your system is operating correctly. And it will also allow you to make any final adjustments to ensure that your shade is properly aligned. Okay, so I'm gonna make sure that I have 17.5 on this side, and I have 17.5 on this side. Now, should I need to make any adjustments, that's where the orbs come in. I can easily slide my orbs up or down and make sure that my shade is aligned. This one happens to be in alignment, so now all I have to do is lock those level locks in, remove the orb, and tie some knots to secure. And I will show you a close-up on that. Now, I normally do this step while my shade is up on the valet, but in order for me to give you a close-up, I need to put it onto the table. Now, this is my last row of rings, and here I have my level lock and my orb. So I'm going to pull it out just so you can see it better. Okay, now I need to make sure that my level lock in the ring lock is up against my orb. Okay, and you can see the level lock is kind of loose inside. If you look closely, you will see that the level lock, the flat side of the level lock, is facing up. Now here is a little close-up view of a level lock, and you will see that it has a dome side and it has a flat side. And as I mentioned, the flat side is facing up. We are now going to grab that level lock and we're going to turn it. And I can go ahead and turn it, let go of the ring lock and turn it. Okay. And now the dome side is facing up. So we now need to snap it in place. So I'm going to push it with my fingers, keeping it up against the orb. And like I said, when it's on the valet, it's easier. And you're going to push it to hear a little snap. Okay. And now you will see if I grab hold of it, let me grab hold of the string here, that it no longer moves. It is locked into place. Now I can take and remove my orb. And I'm going to take and do a little double knot down at the bottom. And some of you may not find it necessary to make this little knot. But again, I want to make sure that my shade is secure in every way that I can so that I don't have any callbacks. I'm doing a double knot because a double knot will not fit through should the level lock come undone, which I doubt that it will. The cord will not come through the hole in the ring lock. Again, this is just a personal preference, and you may not find it necessary. Okay, there you go. Before we get started, it's important to note that the steps that you will be taking are the same whether you're using the RR10 or the RR20 manual or motorized system. To ensure that the shade is compliant with child safety standards, I have sewn the forever rings on the back of the shade 8 inches apart, and we will be stringing it using ring locks. Let's begin by marking the tube for the placement of your C-clips. Now to do this, I find that it's handy if I take my system and align it side to side, and just where I can see the top of the first row of rings. And I will take my ruler, and I'm going to align my ruler like at the center of my ring. And I'm going to make a mark on my tube 2 inches in, because we want to offset our clips 2 inches in from our row of rings. And I'll come to the other side and I will do the same. Okay, I can see the center of my ring, a 2-inch mark, and I'll make a pencil mark right there. Now, this shade only has 2 rows of rings, but if you had additional rows of rings, then you would do the same. You will offset them either to the right of that row or to the left of that row 2 inches. Next, you're going to cut your shade cord. I cut mine the finished length of my shade plus 10 inches. Then we will insert it into the hole on the top of the clip. Now, this is my personal preference to go through both of the holes. Some may only go through one. I want to make sure that my cord are secure, and I will do anything I can to avoid any callback. So I've inserted into one of the holes and down the other. Then now I'm going to tie a knot large enough to keep it from coming through those holes. Okay, so I'll give it a little pull. So that's nice and secure. And I'll do the same to the other. Now put it at the top and down the edge, and the other side, I should say. And again, just do some little knots. Securing the cord so it does not pull through the holes. Next step I'm going to take is I am going to go to the end of the cord, and with the lighter, I want to seal the end. So carefully, I will just touch it and real quick pull on the end. Be careful not to singe your fingers. We do this so that the cord will slide through the hole in the ring lock. Let's now attach the C-clips to our tube. Now, when placing your C-clip on the tube, you want to make sure that the cord is coming out of the C-clip in the direction of the row of rings. Okay, now you're just going to take the C-clip, and I always find one of the grooves on the tube and align the edge of the C-clip along that groove, like this. And here's my 2-inch mark, and I just snap it down. Okay, now we'll do the same on the other side, making sure that my cord is coming out on the left-hand side, and I will find that same groove and along that 2-inch mark, slide this down and snap it into place. Then take my cord and run it under the tube. And doing the same on the opposite side. Now that your C-clips are attached to your tubes along with your cord, you can continue on and finish stringing your shade. Now that your shade is complete, it's ready to install. Now I have just a couple of tips for you. For an outside mounted shade, the most common and reliable way to install the shade is by using L brackets. But you want to ensure that your L brackets are level and positioned in a way that do not interfere with your brackets on the underside of the dustboard. You're simply going to secure your L bracket on the wall and then place your shade on top, and then secure that with 2 screws. Thank you for following along in this video series, and I certainly hope that you enjoy using the Rolly Zachnita Roman shade systems for all of your Roman shade needs. Let's begin programming your shade. I'm going to guide you through the easy steps of pairing the remote to the motor, checking the direction of the shade, setting the upper and lower limits, locking the remote, putting it to sleep, and restoring the motor to factory settings. When it comes time to program my shade, I do have it up on a valet, but for demonstration purposes, I have placed a motor here on the table just so I can give you a few close-ups. When pairing the remote, you will select the desired channel that you will be using to operate this motor. And I've chosen channel 1. Then you will take a paper clip or a very small tool, and I'm using a Phillips head screwdriver, and I'm going to press and hold the P1 button at the top of the motor head. I will wait for the motor to respond. I have a long beep, and I have 4 seconds to press my stop button. And now the motor has been paired successfully. We're now going to check the motor direction by pressing the up or the down arrow on the remote control. If the motor moves in the opposite direction of the arrows, then we know we need to change the direction of the motor. So I'm going to press the down arrow, and you can see that my shade is actually moving up. I'm going to hit the stop button, and to change the direction, I'm simply going to put my finger on the up and down arrow simultaneously and press down until my motor responds with a jog. Okay, and there's my jog. Now I will check one of the arrows to see what direction that the shade is going in, and we'll go up this time. And you see that the shade is now going up. And our shade is in the correct direction, we can set the upper and lower limit. I will press the upper arrow until my shade is in the desired top position. Okay, I will stop it right there. I will now press and hold my stop and up button until I get 2 jogs and 3 beeps. My upper limit is set. Now I can push the down button till I reach my desired lower limit. Hit the stop button. Now I will press and hold the down arrow and the stop button until my motor responds with 2 jogs and 3 beeps. Now the upper and lower limit have been set, and I will take my shade and let it go up to make sure that it is indeed set. I have a slow stop. Now I will hit the down arrow to make sure that it stops at the lower limit that I have set. So the upper and lower limits are now set. The upper and lower limits have been set, and if there are no other shades that we need to program to this remote, then we can go ahead and lock it. And we can do that by turn the remote over. At the bottom right is a button with a little lock above it. If we press this button, I'm going to turn it over, and we'll watch our screen here. I'm going to press the button. You see a U, that's for unlock. We hold the button, an L will appear. That means that the remote is now locked. Now, if we need to unlock the remote and go into programming mode again, we simply do the same thing. We'll turn. We'll see the flashing U. This means that it is now unlocked, and we can go back into programming mode. After we have programmed the motor, we can now engage the sleep mode. And this will prevent the motor from accidentally running when it's being transported from our studio to the client's location. So let me show you how to do that. Using my screwdriver, I'm going to press and hold the P1 button until the motor jogs 2 times. And I have 2 beeps. Now, if I go to my remote, and I press up or I press down, you see that my motor is not moving. So during transportation, like I said, it will keep your shade from accidentally running. Now, once the shade is installed, the installer can wake the motor up. Now, during the time that it's asleep, it will retain all the programming that we have done on the motor. So let me show you how to wake it up. And with that screwdriver, we're going to put it back into the P1 until we get 1 jog. And 1 beep. All right. Now we can check the motor. Stop it. And now you can see it's awake. Now, there are times that we need to take the motor back to factory settings. So let me show you how that is done. Again, with my screwdriver, or if you're using a paper clip, we're going to press and hold the P1 until the motor jogs 4 times, and I get 4 beeps. Now, your motor is back to square one, and you can begin programming your motor. Now, in just a few simple steps, you have successfully programmed your shade. If you have any other programming needs, be sure to refer to the instructions that come with your remote. Thank you so much for following along with me in this series.